They truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Sarwar, North Lancashire, where it is overcast, 14 degrees, time to put a pulley on. That's the weather forecast for Sarwar, North Lancashire. You want to know what the weather forecast is like where you are? Look out your own bloody window. Anyway, yesterday I mentioned I was going to do a wee short on what went on at First Minister's Questions with Mr. Sarwar yesterday, because something just flapped the radars on what Mr. Sarwar was saying. So what I'll do is I'll put up what Mr. Sarwar was saying, and then we'll go through it, eh? So Mr. Sarwar's talking about people self-funding for healthcare. Once he's finished, we'll break it down. Okay. So here we go. Now this is where I take odds with Mr. Sarwar, because Davy's not a fucking idiot. Davy knows that 25% of UK employees have healthcare as part of their job, a perk of their job, especially in classes 1 to 4. Believe it or not. That's the elite, the upper classes, the upper middle classes, and the middle classes. But you don't have to believe me. Let's go and have a look at some of the facts, shall we? So that Mr. Sarwar can stop stretching the truth. People only having to find money to finance these things themselves. Their employers want them back at work quick because they're important to the organisation. So health insurance has become quite normal in workplaces. In fact, I was talking to Nancy Maguire yesterday, and she worked for Sky for years, and a perk of the Sky contract was health insurance. Now, if they had to get a knee replaced or a hip replaced or a minor operation, then they paid a £25 upfront payment, and the health insurance for Sky covered the rest. People are no grubbing about looking to find money to pay for this. But let's have a wee look at some of the facts, shall we? Let's share this one. This is from the National Library of Medicine's Role of Private Sector in the United Kingdom Healthcare System. Since 1948, the private sector has viewed itself as a complementary to the NHS. Before the NHS was set up in 1948, healthcare was provided for charities, voluntary hospitals, private medical clubs, occupational medical services, and work clubs. Fees for service insurance, friendly societies, public medical. Right, that's clear. Summary: over 12 million people in the United Kingdom are covered by private healthcare. The private healthcare sector already provides many services for the NHS, such as psychiatric care, long-term residential care for people with learning difficulties. The NHS provides many private beds. Collaboration between the NHS and the private sector would provide a better health service than continued isolation, apparently. Now, since 1997, over 12 million people have had to pay private health insurance and cash plans for companies. 7 million people, 12% of the population, were covered by private medical insurance. Care for this group, however, is represented only by 75% of actual medical and psychiatric inpatient and outpatient hospital treatments in the private sector. Some private care is self-financed, very little though, and the NHS also contracts out to private providers, notably in psychiatric care, care of the elderly, termination of pregnancy, and throughout the waiting list initiatives. Okay, so what this tells us is that Mr. Sarwar, he didn't have sound in what he had to say. But what Mr. Sarwar had to say was 43,000 people. Yesterday claimed 43,000 people in Scotland had to pay for private medical care because the NHS waiting times. Now, the First Minister happened with an avalanche of figures on how the waiting times have been coming down. But COVID had really put the boot in a couple of years ago and it's taken more time to recover. Sarwar says he promised it by this date, and then he went on to say that 43,000 people were self-funded medical care. They're no. They definitely are not. I've just read it out to you. Now, what's interesting though, I'll go and find this one for you because, as you know, folks, when something gets on my tits, I go and have a look. So let's have a look at some other facts about private healthcare here in the UK, shall we? I've got another document. Here we go. We'll get this one up and share it for you. This one's quite interesting as well, folks. Where are we? I think it's this one. Let me have a look. No, it's not that one. No, hold on a second. Yeah, bugger, blocked the graph for me. Sorry about this, folks. What the graph did tell us, this graph here, it tells us that since the Tories came to power in 2011, companies have stopped providing there is now only 10.1% of people with private medical cover, or in classes category 1 to 4. Now, one of the other reasons why people need private medical cover is because sometimes it's cheaper than getting it through the NHS. If you come here on a visa, for example, cost for a year, how much do they pay if they come here on a visa? £470 per year for students on a 1-year visa, 940 on a 2-year visa, £400 for visa immigration applicants under the age of 18 at the time of application, and 624 per year for all visas and immigration applicants. For example, it would be £3,120 for 5 years. Another reason why a lot of foreign nationals, believe it or not, actually take private healthcare is cheaper, and it's allowed under the visa application. Okay, but as I say, when Sarwar was talking about 43,000 people, it's a lot of crap. Yep, about 25% of the workforce, especially in categories classes 1 to 4, have private medical insurance as part of the perks for jobs. Yep, some of them will all have to pay an excess to get the job done, but generally the company pays for it. So, including things like chemotherapy. What he was talking about there was probably people in the banking sector and people really important in the industry who had medical insurance which would cover things like chemotherapy. As to cataracts, people have been paying for cataracts for themselves for a long time. But a lot's all covered by the private sector. A lot of that's covered by the private sector. And has been since it started. But people are not paying cash for this stuff. It's a perk of their employment. Shut that one down. So back to the role of the private sector, shall we? Let's look for what we're looking for. Private medical insurance is more common among older people and in social classes 1 to 3, with coverage ranging from 22% for social class 1 and 2% for social class 4. The proportion of population with private medical insurance also varies by geological distribution. 20% of the population in the London metropolitan area are covered, but only 4% in the north of England. Also, about 2/3 of private medical insurance policies are paid for by employers. There you go, point made. And 1/3 are paid for by individuals. But generally, people are not putting their hands in their pockets to find 3, 4, 5, 6 grand for a hip hop. Sarwar lied, or he stretched the truth as far as it could go, and that got Davies' radar ticking. Starting in the Scottish Parliament claiming 43,000 people had to find cash to pay for healthcare. It's crap. Most of it was paid for through company policies. The ones that they have private insurance, they've got private insurance because they, well, let's face it, for visas and things like that, it's cheaper, and because they could afford that. Those who were paying out their own pocket were generally in the upper to elite classes who could afford to pick the medical centre of their choice throughout the world. For example, if we take the Golden Jubilee Hospital, it's a cardiac centre of excellence, and people from all over the world pay to come there and get their heart problems sorted out. Generally, those in the elite and the upper class who can afford to pay for it. Very small percentage of that 43,000 people that Sarwar claimed was digging into their savings and going to borrowing money and mortgaging their houses to get operations. Man's talking fish. If there was anybody in that dire situation, I bet it was in the small hundreds. And they were probably just throwing down a wee bit of value from their houses. Most of them would already have been paid off their mortgages. Most of them would have wanted a knee or a hip repair and couldn't afford to wait, so maybe they're all a wee bit down off the value of their houses to get it done. But when Sarwar stood in that parliament yesterday and claimed that 43,000 people had used private healthcare. So bloody what? That's very little, actually. Because we're looking at 10.1% of the population UK-wide that has private medical care, and some of that through, most of that through companies, as you've just had me redo. Look at that 10% UK-wide. That's 67 million people. That's 6.7 million people. That means 670,000 people here in Scotland in classes 1 to 4. Remember what the classes are? The elite, the upper class, the upper middle class, and the middle classes. All have 670,000 of them have private medical insurance. And only 43,000 people used private healthcare last year. Must be a pretty fit bunch. Hey? Now to get back to private healthcare, it doesn't stop with you in with that company, for example. Certain benefits can be carried on for small amounts. Spoke about Nancy, who are in Fife, who used to work for Sky. Well, her and her husband worked for Sky for quite a while. Her husband's just retired. Nancy's been with it a while. But they still pay a very small amount to Sky to keep the dental insurance for the family and to keep the optometry insurance for their families. And Nancy's recently used them. She's part of the figures that Sarwar's talking about. People who use private medical insurance every day because they have it. They have it. So Sarwar in that parliament yesterday claiming that 43,000 people to dig into their pockets for private medical care. No, they did they. Very few of them dug into their pockets, if many, very few. And if there was any really that dug into their private pockets, it would have been in the very low hundreds. And that's for things for chemo and things like that. If they were being paid for privately, because the people could afford that. There is a certain section of the population that's never used NHS services at all, because they're that bloody rich. They go to Harley Street in London to see their GPs. They pick the best hospitals anywhere in the world to get their treatments. What Sarwar told the public and the gallery, and that's what he was playing to the gallery and that parliament yesterday, was stretching the truth to its very limits. Especially when he said that people were having to dig into their own pockets to pay for this care. They're no, folks. As I've just put up, 22% of the population is covered by private medical insurance in classes 1 to 4. 12% of the population, sorry, it's down to 10.1% of the population, is private health insurance. That's 6.7 million people, 670,000 here in Scotland per capita share. Sarwar was talking pish. So I did tell you I was going to do a wee short on Sarwar and what he had to say in the parliament yesterday, because something about it just didn't rock through with me when he was on about 43,000 people having to dig into their pockets to fund private healthcare. There you have it. The majority of them would be covered by healthcare policies provided by their employer as a perk of the job. But misleading the public like that and bringing headlines which are totally untrue to the papers and to the radio stations, because that's what we're getting, sound bites. None of it's true. None of it's true. And as I say, I've just read out the document to the British Medical Health Systems. It's a private one, but they collated the data and had a look at the data. They even broke it into class sections for us. And as you know now, folks, well, I don't know if you're all aware, because when I was growing up, there was 3 classes. You had the upper class, middle class, or upper classes. Now we have the elite, the upper classes, the upper middle class, the lower middle class, the working class, the unemployed, and the underclass. So we now have 8 classes in our system. But when Anna Sarwar stood in that parliament yesterday and said 43,000 people were having to dig into their own pockets to finance healthcare, he's a liar. He was stretching the truth to the edges of credibility. Anyway, that's a wee Davy Short on yesterday's First Minister's questions and ambulance chaser, poverty pie, Anna Sarwar. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry the sound wasn't on the First Minister's thing. I don't know what that's all about. We're going to have to look into that. The same was happening with David Milligan when he was trying to pick clips up. I'll have a wee look at that. Okay. But what he said in First Minister's yesterday was that 43,000 people to dig into their pockets to fund private healthcare, and he then read out a list of things that were being covered by private healthcare. People only digged into their pockets for it, folks. Private healthcare insurance is a perk of the jobs. And it does show why he's failing in the polls. Because he likes to treat people as fucking idiots. But there's sound bites in all the papers today. There is crap in the radio today about the 43,000 people having to fund their private healthcare. But no, majority of them have a perk of their jobs, private health insurance. Now, get out there and make people aware that the man's a liar and he misled, or he at least stretched the credibility of the truth to its very limits in the Parliament yesterday. Anyway, that's a Davy Short on FM Q's over. Have a nice day.